Howdy, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Meet and Greet, where we have the conversation you want to have with that person you just spent hours in line wanting to meet. My guest today is a stand up comedian, actor, performer, but you may know him best as playing the genie in the Aladdin Spectacular set in Disneyland, California adventure. My guest today is Dylan White. So go ahead, like, subscribe, share this video, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Meet and Greet.
I appreciate the shirt, by the way.
Absolutely. I did it on purpose.
I'd considered it. Like, do I need to go change my shirt? I have a genie shirt. Should I wear that?
No, but what you could do, I'll wait. If you could go paint your face blue, that would be.
You got it. There's got to be a filter on here or something.
Absolutely. When you were doing shows at either Universal or Disneyland, did you have an opportunity to do any meet and greets?
We did. I'll start with Universal since that's what I did first. It was always after specific shows. Like if it was never before the show before lunch, and it was never before the last show of the day. That was the same at Disney. Mostly because one, we wanted to get out of there, and two, they didn't want us like doing a meet and greet. And then, costumes and everybody is like waiting for us to do a meet and greet. Like they want to go home too. So it was always if there was like another show afterwards. So yeah, did it both at Universal and at Disney. Universal was pretty much after every show where we could have a meet and greet. It was just standard fare. We do the show, meet and greet, do the show, lunch. And then it was like, so like after first and third shows. Disney, for the Aladdin show, meet and greets were only when there was like a special guest on the audience, like if the cast had, family or friends in the audience, or there was a VIP or something like that. So there wasn't necessarily always a meet and greet. We'd have days where most days there wasn't a meet and greet. So again, it was if cast or crew or somebody had people in the audience.
Sure. And you're doing stand-up now. Do you typically do meet and greets after your stand-up shows?
To me, that is the show after the show.
That is the show after the show.
So, and it's never like a meet and greet, and nobody really knows who I am doing stand-up. But it's always like when the show is over, I make it a point myself, and a lot of comedians will do this. We're out, by the exit and thanking people for coming, taking whatever compliments we can get. But usually it's just thanks for coming, appreciate you, that sort of thing. If we have merch to sell, we sell merch at that point. But yeah, after every show, I'm usually out there just expressing my appreciation.
Are you a headliner at this point, or are you kind of
not yet.
In the middle? Not yet.
I'm working on it. I'm becoming more of a middle act. So like at a typical weekend at a club, you'd have your host, your feature, your headliner.
Sure.
Do a lot of hosting. I'm starting to do more featuring, so that's the middle act.
You're right. You're not doing full 90, pretty much.
No.
No.
Yeah, the headliner will typically do, depending upon the room,
an hour,
45 to 60.
Yeah.
So I do feature work in casinos and I'm probably going to be headlining in casinos before I'm headlining in clubs.
So I can imagine that as an audience member, you get up on stage, you're the middle act, and they say, "Here's Dylan White," and then like usually the first sentence out of your warped mouth is, "I was the genie in Aladdin," and everyone's like, "Oh, now we can listen to this guy."
It's sometimes it's in my intro, depending upon what I'm going to be doing that night. Sometimes I do bring it up in my act. Like sometimes I reference it, sometimes I don't, depending upon what I'm doing. And a lot of times it's people like, "Oh, I know that show, and I know that there was a genie." They don't necessarily know that it was me, like unless they're already following me on TikTok or Instagram or something. But it's also the kind of thing too where I will say I was the genie, and I might tell, I have a couple funny genie stories that I'll do in my act.
Sure.
And they'll come up to me afterwards and go, "Were you really the genie?" Yes, I was. And I can show them, I've got pictures on my phone. They can go to my website and see clips of me doing it and getting into makeup, so they can see me before, me after.
Yeah. So we'll do a deep dive into the Aladdin Spectacular much later on. But I kind of want to get started where you got started. First of all, I got to apologize right up front. Are you born and raised in LA?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, just outside of LA, Southern California. I was LA adjacent.
Okay, I'm born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I apologize. I'm a Giants fan.
I don't follow sports at all, so you do you.
All right, Dodgers and Giants don't get along. So
And I don't care. So
cool. Um, was being an actor kind of always the dream, or did you have like several ideas of I want to be, this,
no,
and then just act?
it's always been, being an actor has always been the dream.
Hmm.
Being a performer, I'll say.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I got into stand up when I was a teenager. Did a little bit in high school, then into college. Was doing pretty well in my 20s. Then when my daughter was born, I took a step back because I didn't want to be
Mm,
traveling and stuff with a new baby at home.
right.
I kept my toe in the pool just to scratch the itch. Like if something came up, I would do it, but I wasn't pursuing that. But I was constantly still pursuing acting.
Hmm.
Like I had a couple bit parts on a couple TV shows, couple movies. I've done a handful of commercials.
Hmm.
And like my biggest work was really the theme park stuff, was Beetlejuice and the Genie.
Yeah. You are one of those chameleons that will pop up every now and then. For instance, I love the show Monk, and there you were
And there I
in the
was,
Christmas episode, season 4.
season
Like, I
four,
know that.
Mr.
Wait a
Monk
minute.
and the Secret Santa. Yep.
Yep. Uh, and I saw an interview you were doing a couple of years ago. You're in the room with Tony Shalhoub and
Yeah.
all those principals. Um, my a personal question out of curiosity, did you resist the temptation to go up to Ted Levine and ask him to put lotion on your skin, or
Absolutely, I did. Yes.
you did resist, or you
I
did
did
it?
resist. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I don't want to be
um
that guy.
that must have been great though, working with, I mean, I like Tony Shalhoub, but Ted
Mhm.
Levine, when he does something incredible. Like,
They and the whole, I mean, the cast, the crew, I mean, that was probably one of the most welcoming sets. And I haven't experienced many, but I've
mhm,
experienced a few. That was probably one of the most welcoming sets I could ever have hoped to have been on. Everybody greeted me like I'd been part of the show since the beginning, and were so friendly and nice. Invited me to watch the rough cut of the previous week's episode.
mhm.
Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. Everybody was great.
Where in your career was that? Were you just starting out acting? Were you already doing some
I was already
studios, or?
doing some stuff, and this was, oh my gosh, 20 years ago now. I shot that. Yeah, it was before I got Aladdin. So yeah, this was '05 that I shot that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just about 20 years ago. Um, the kind of thing where I've always been pursuing it, and I'd get little things here and there, and this was just like another, thing for my resume, another credit on my IMDb.
Yeah.
Just trying to
You're
build, just trying to build up.
Yeah, and like you said, you shifted your focus to stand up. When you first start, I love stand up comedy. I think is probably the hardest performance out there, because you're coming up with the jokes and you're either successful or
Yeah,
dead in the water.
you're sinking or swimming.
That's right. And as a teenager, where maybe obviously you have grown, but where were your jokes kind
Yeah,
of
I've grown.
coming from as a teenager? Like,
Uh,
puberty is not that fun, you know?
it was, if I'm trying to remember some of my material from, especially when I was in high school, it was a lot of observational material,
Mhm.
and certainly very based on, like, things locally where I grew up, because I wasn't touring anywhere or anything like that, so anybody I was performing to knew the area, so I could pull stuff from there. And just like odd ideas and just things I would come up with, so it was never just like, boy, high school's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was never stuff like that.
Jerry Seinfeld, what is the deal with
What's the
biology?
deal with physical education?
And then of course as life progresses, you start having more things to talk about.
Oh, sure.
And where your stand-ups was then to evolve now, how many minutes would you say you devote to telling uh theme park stories?
Not many, honestly. And I should
Hmm.
probably, I was even considering, because I just shot a special for Dry Bar Comedy. Um and while I'll still keep doing that material, that was just kind of like one of those benchmarks where it's like, I need to start working on new stuff,
Uh-huh.
get new stuff out there. And I think I need to do a deep dive into some theme park stuff, but it's got to be stuff that can also be related to, that the audience could relate to, not just like my inside
Yeah.
info. Like some of it'll be inside info, but yeah, I've just got to figure out the stories that I can get away with telling.
The theme park stuff is definitely what you're known for. Like that's the TikTok clips and the viral
Yeah,
videos that'll.
that's kind of how everybody knows me, and it's another reason why I feel like I need to focus, not more on it, but I need to have more of a focus.
Uh-huh.
If you get
I
the
have
distinction, did that make
I
any
have
sense
I have a lot
whatsoever?
of notes about you, so pardon me
Ooh,
if I looked, I did a deep dive on you, man.
wow.
And one of the I was surprised to see you. I already knew you from Monk, um, but as I was researching, I was like, okay, because I was really researching like the shows, right?
Mhm.
Beetlejuice and Aladdin, how long? But here's the weird thing. I was at Barnes and Noble the other day, looking for a gift for my wife for her birthday. So I'm trying to come up with an idea, and I come across it was either fiction or teen romance, and I'm
Uh-huh.
just looking up and down, and there's this lady next to me. She pulls out this book, and she opens it up, and I just kind of glance over, and I look up, and I'm like, wait, that's Dylan's picture. You have a book series
So
out there.
you found a physical copy of my book at a Barnes& and Noble?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Half price books. Half price books.
Oh, at Half Price
Not Barnes.
Books. Okay, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, because I know they're on digitally at Barnes& and Noble. Okay, so a physical copy at Half Price Books. That makes sense because people be like, yeah, okay, I'm not reading this again.
Yeah. What is the Apparition series?
The Apparition series I wrote, oh my gosh, this came out about 12 years ago. I released the third book in the trilogy.
Hmm.
It was kind of it was an answer to Twilight because I hated the Twilight series.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I mean, like vehemently hated the Twilight series. And my daughter was of the age where those were the kind of books she was starting to read. And I wanted to
Mhm.
give her a better uh character to follow than
Mm.
someone like Bella, who is just so easily manipulated and is not an active participant in her own story. So
But what do you really think?
I know I'm gonna tick a lot of people off for that take, but come on. Um,
How dare you have a subjective opinion about a
right?
book series? Yeah.
I and I'd never written a book before. Like I was working on getting into writing for TV, and I'd written a handful of
Hmm.
screenplays that I was, trying to
Oh,
get
cool.
off the ground and that sort of thing. And I'd had this idea about what if um a ghost and a living person had a relationship, like if they, kind of like met each other and fell in love.
Hmm.
And it went through several iterations, and it was always an idea I'd excuse me, I'd put away and pull back out and put away and pull back out. For a while I was like, it was going to be kind of like a jokey little Disney series. I was going to develop it that way. Like, also it went through so many iterations before I finally said maybe it's a book. And I sat down one night and for a couple hours just word vomited how the world would work and how you could interact with a ghost and everything like that. And once I figured that, I'm like, yeah, this is maybe a book.
Did COVID
So
help with that a little bit?
this was well before COVID. I
Before
wrote,
COVID.
oh yeah,
Okay.
I wrote this. They all came out in like 2011, 2012.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about deep. I didn't know I did that deep of a
You
dive
did
on you.
that deep of a deep dive.
Wow.
So yeah, it is about a ghost haunting a house who falls in love with the girl who moves in.
It's a PG-13 Casper.
PG, yes, it's a PG. It's a yeah, it's PG-13 Casper. Again, it
Yeah.
was written around the time of Twilight, so there's all that sort of like teen
Sure.
romance drama sort of thing. However, I feel it's way better.
I mean, it's
But
the Twilight, yeah,
a
you
lot
hit
of the
the nail
reviews
on the
I
head.
got on it too was you don't have to be a teen to appreciate it.
Oh, good.
Because I wrote it from this perspective too. I got a lot of my reviews, if you find it on Amazon or whatever, are about how uh, it's kind of like ageless. It doesn't matter what age you are, you relate to a lot of the stuff that's happening in the stories.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, you got the Twilight series where the vampire falls in love with the girl. Then you got the movie Warm Bodies where the zombie
the
falls in
zombie,
love.
yeah.
Why not a ghost?
Why not a ghost?
Yeah.
And
Next will be a werewolf. Oh, wait, no, that
right,
happened in Twilight. Never mind.
and then like to build on that. So I kind of wrote that for my daughter.
Hmm.
Um, and then I thought, well, I need to write something for my son. So I have another book out there. I've only the first one, and I have the ideas for the second and third books, but I've done nothing with them. But it's a book called The Orion Abduction, and it's about an alien, and not an alien invasion, but it's an alien story.
Because you're a comedian, are these books kind of comedic, spooky? Is or
There are funny elements to them.
uh-huh.
They're definitely more serious, more adventure-y. I was my writing in terms of my books very much influenced by Twilight Zone, um,
Mm,
J.J. Abrams kind of storytelling, like with Lost and that sort of thing. Not necessarily mystery box, but kind of like building up a suspense, having a reveal, and needing a cliffhanger kind of thing.
okay.
So it's very episodic in that regard. So there are certainly funny moments to them, but they are not comedy books.
Right. Right. That's cool. And kind of shifting gears a little bit. You're doing theme park stuff at the time. Were you doing Aladdin or Universal kind of
At the
in the
time, no, I was doing Aladdin at the time
Aladdin?
when I wrote
Cool.
Apparition. Yeah.
I mentioned meet and greets before.
Hmm.
Before we start talking about the stuff, there's a
Whatever.
difference between meeting a character at the theme park and you performing that character on
Yes.
stage. What is that
Correct.
main? I know the answer to this question, but just for those out there, what is the main difference between those two?
You pretty much articulated it. We were not those characters. We were actors portraying those characters.
Right.
Uh, the characters in the park were the characters. If you met the genie in the park, you met the genie. If you
Mm,
met me for a meet and greet, you met the actor portraying the genie in a show.
okay.
So yeah, that was you nailed it. That is absolutely the distinction.
Yeah, Disneyland is a perfect example of this for the genie because the genie as a character in the park is a face character. They
Yes.
don't talk. I would imagine for those VIPs, you were still in makeup
Oh
and
yeah, because it was
in
right after the
blue,
show,
but you
and
were Dylan. You weren't the genie.
right, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and especially given the makeup process, yeah, I didn't get out of makeup all day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Were you part of like an actors union to get the roles on the stage?
yeah, so Universal is now, it wasn't at the time, um, part of AGVA, the American Guild of Variety Artists,
Mm-hmm.
and Aladdin fell under that umbrella of union, so that was an AGVA show.
Okay. Um, Beetlejuice was probably the first. Was that the first theme park show you've ever done, or were you
Yes,
doing? Yeah. Did you ever
yeah,
work at a theme park prior? Were you one of those guys that
never.
says keep your
I
hands? Yeah.
I came no, I'd never worked theme parks before. And I came into the audition for Beetlejuice uh, just because I loved the character, and this seemed like a really fun thing to do, and it was within my wheelhouse. I want to perform and get
Sure.
paid for it, and it was so intimidating because I walked into that first audition, and everybody there knew everybody else there because they were
Oh,
all theme park performers. They'd all done other shows together. They'd either worked at Universal or Disney or Knott's, or they all knew each other.
yeah.
And I was like this fish out of water who didn't know anybody in the room. I had no connections. And I ended up booking Beetlejuice as a full-time gig. I became the regular character.
Most of the time with actors, at least my friends who are out there, they audition for tons of stuff and just hope something sticks. Do you know if your
Yes.
audition was this? Did you key in on Beetlejuice, or were you just in the process of auditioning? And I mean, you obviously
It was
wanted to get Beetlejuice,
it
but
was
I'm
certainly
sure
something I
there was
wanted
other.
because
Yeah.
theme park work is a great day job for actors because you're getting
Hmm.
paid to perform. And there is a lot of flexibility with it where there are several actors playing the same role. So you have an audition that comes up, you just call in one of the subs or whatever to cover your shows for the day, and you go on your audition and the show still goes on. And then you
Sure.
come back. Yeah,
Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Beetlejuice show,
do it
because
again.
you did specifically the in California.
Yes.
It's still Beetlejuice Rock and Roll. It's called the Beetlejuice Rock and Roll Graveyard Review. It's still running in Japan. It's not
Yes.
in America anymore. But
No.
and from the research that I've done, there's four different iterations of the show,
Okay.
and
I think that's
Hollywood had
correct.
Hollywood had two, Florida had three, and Japan's on their
On their
fourth.
fourth.
And I think
Yes.
and I
And
think you were in the
I was in
second.
the second iteration. So it used to be an outdoor show.
Right.
Same sort of show, a little bit different. Then it moved into the Castle Theater, which is now no longer there. But when it moved into the Castle Theaters, when I joined the show for its second iteration, where at the time it was called Beetlejuice's Rockin' Graveyard Revue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And because, yeah, you brought up the show title, and that went through some changes as well.
The show title itself.
Uh-huh.
How much sing? I've never seen the show. I'll admit it. I think I don't want to say how old I was when that show was out, but
I'll send you a YouTube link.
I know I was young enough to be afraid of it.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I'll say on how old I was. So I never got to see it. However, you got this musical out there, Beetlejuice,
Yes.
and the guy has the rasp while he's singing. Did you have a
Oh yeah,
singing
yeah.
role
Oh,
in?
oh yeah. I mean, well,
Yeah.
so I did,
Okay. Well, why not? Let's talk
yeah.
about
Let's
it.
do it like this. Yeah.
All
So
right.
Beetlejuice in the show didn't sing. I didn't have a song. I sort of did. We did for a while. Eventually got cut from the show. We did Deo. But even that
Why
part of
would
it
you
for me.
cut? I'm sorry to interrupt. Why would you cut Deo from? Not you personally, but
And it was a fun bit too, because after the number, I would come up and I had these. Remember the shrunken heads in the movie?
yeah, yeah.
I had these two like big shrunken head puppets that were rod puppets on the side, and I could operate their mouths to have them lip sync along to the track,
Oh,
and I
that's
could make
amazing.
it was so much fun. It was so cool.
And talk about
And
an
then the rest of the
audience
cast,
participation song too. Like
and then the rest of the
everyone.
cast would come out like dressed all Caribbean and whatever. You know, Frankenstein like a big straw hat and stuff like that. It was ridiculous and silly and so much fun. Um, I don't know. I
Man,
don't remember why they cut it from the show,
that's ridiculous.
but it was
Wow.
fun. So I didn't have my own singing solo in that
Mhm.
show. All the other characters had a song, and my job as Beetlejuice was just to facilitate all the breaks in between the songs. I was like a backup dancer in a couple of them and that sort of thing. But no, in that
Mhm.
show, I never had a song, with the exception of I'd been doing the show for so long, and we also uh, it was 6 characters, and we would do these contingency shows. Like, say if we had no Phantom of the Opera for the day,
Hmm.
like the actor couldn't come in and there was no coverage for him, we would do a phantomless show, where we basically would cut his number, we'd adjust the choreography for the other numbers, and figure out how we could do that. And that we could do that with all of the characters. We could do a show without
Hmm.
a Dracula, without a Frankenstein, without a Wolfman, without a Bride of Frankenstein. But you can't do Beetlejuice's Rockin' Graveyard Revue without a
Without
Beetlejuice.
right.
So we had put together all these contingency shows, and there was one time where we were going to do a phantomless show. We didn't have a Phantom of the Opera that day, but we still did the number, because instead of the Phantom singing Great Balls of Fire, I'd done the show so much and I knew it so well that I went up on like the big set that we had with all the cars, and I did the Great Balls of Fire number as Beetlejuice. I think I did that 2, maybe 3 times.
Cool.
It was so much fun.
Yeah,
And
man.
Universal was they were just like cool about it. Yeah, you can do it. You know the safety protocols and everything like that. Do it.
And Beetlejuice is kind of similar to the Genie in a lot of ways, where breaking that fourth wall
Yes.
and coming up with jokes either on the fly or uh, I'm sure there's a different story for Disney, so I'll repeat this question later.
Sure.
Well, where was your freedom of jokes and what you could say? Because I know Universal's a little little looser than Disney. Yeah,
Lot looser. I mean, you couldn't be, vile or vulgar, or
sure.
I could be a way more suggestive at Universal, and especially as Beetlejuice.
Hmm.
The jokes could be a lot darker.
What was the do you have a YouTube like hand to the side and have fun or
oh right, there was that one at the beginning. Yeah. In the pre-show, it's like, all right, you're ready to have some fun. All right, put one hand out to one side, put your other hand out to the other side. You ready? Have some fun. And there was one really dark joke that I told, and this tells you how old this show was, where like the cue in the script for Dracula to introduce his song is something about how in the script it's typical stupid theme park writing. It's like, my Slimex watch isn't working. Drac, you got the time. And then he says it's almost midnight. That's the cue, and his song starts. Well, I would change that up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the darkest ones I would do, and nobody ever told me, don't tell that joke. At Disney, they would have, but at Universal, they said, don't tell that joke.
Oh, my Tupac Shakur watch is shot.
Oh,
Hey,
no.
Drac.
Like stuff like that. And I could get away with that at Universal.
Oh, wow. Talk about getting in trouble.
Yeah.
So- and you did, okay, was the schedule similar? You did 2 shows and then lunch and then
2
2
shows,
shows.
lunch, 2 shows.
How many days a week?
At Universal, when I was doing it, it alternated 3 days, 4 days, 3 days, 4 days. And
Okay.
then, so, because there were 2 teams. So one team would do, say, Sunday through Wednesday, and the next team would do Thursday through Saturday. And then the following week, that first team would do Sunday through Tuesday, and then the second team would do Wednesday through. So they're alternating 3 and 4 day weeks
Wow.
to kind of keep it even.
And again, we've been kind of talking like Beetlejuice a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Already, my voice is getting a little raw. How do you preserve the voice for 3 shows, 6 shows a week, 8 shows a week?
It was a lot of practice. It's a lot of vocal training. Just figuring out where you can place it. Like it's a lot of vocal placement and a lot of tea, drinking a lot of tea.
Oh, okay. I had Rob Paulson on here, like we talked about before, and one of the things that was brought up was the difference between imitation and creation.
Yes.
And Beetlejuice is very interesting because obviously you have a baseline of Beetlejuice with Michael Keaton.
Right.
So you are going to be imitating Michael Keaton. However, he only had 10 minutes of screen time in
like
the
12
film.
minutes or something like that.
Yeah. Was it, I mean, for your Beetlejuice, was it just the voice and the script, and then you just kind of find the character from there?
It's the voice, the script. I mean, Keaton, for the time he had, the limited screen time he had, you definitely got a sense of that character.
Yeah.
So you could
I think
also
they changed the movie title because he was so good as that character.
Did they?
I don't know the whole history
story
behind it. It's either that or there was another.
It's
either that or he wasn't receiving top billing, but then because test audiences loved him on the movie,
I do remember that it wasn't the original title, but I don't remember why it changed. But you could be right. I don't know. But it's also just a matter of getting the essence of the character, and he was so good at embodying that character, and a lot of it was his creation as well. So you kind of try to find that headspace. At the time too, there was also the animated cartoon,
right?
Which some of the design of the theme park character was based off of. So you could kind of use that as a reference for like its playfulness and its that sort of thing. So
yeah, the cartoon
you get to use it as reference, but because so many different people played the role, everybody brought their own thing to it.
Yeah, how many Beetlejuices were there? I mean, 8 or
I can't say over the course of the run of the show. I'm sure there were 2, 3, 4 dozen, but at any given time on a roster, there were probably about 8 of us.
Okay.
There would be the 2 full-time Beetlejuices who would do those split show weeks. And then there was a list of call-ins who some of whom would also cover other roles. Like a couple Beetlejuices also did say either Phantom or the Wolfman or something like that.
Of course. Did you ever do that too? Like you covered for
because I was full-time, I only did Beetlejuice.
Okay.
I never cross-trained in another role.
I've had a couple friends work for the Universal theme park, and in Hollywood particular, this is the difference for those watching. The difference between Hollywood Universal Studios and Florida Universal Studios is that Hollywood is an active movie set.
Yes.
With a theme park built around it, whereas Florida is the exact opposite. It's a theme park with a movie set kind of in the middle.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and the number one complaint of my friends that worked at Universal was there's really no dressing room for a character. You have backstage, and if you want to get to point B, you have to walk there.
Yes, you have to walk through the park. That was the case with us. I mean, of course, we had our dressing room in the theater and everything like that.
Sure. But nothing like for makeup and costume, right?
That was all within the theater. Like we did our own makeup for Beetlejuice. Our costumes were in the theater, like we had our own dedicated costume room and everything like that. But the cast commissary, when it was time for lunch, was all the way on the other side of the park, and there's no way to get through it. So you either had to go in full costume to go to lunch because you're walking through the park. And if you did that too, you had to check in with park operations or whatever the department was to see if there was already a park Beetlejuice out doing meet and greets, because you can't have two Beetlejuices in the park at the same time. Well, in the park you can. If there was a Beetlejuice in the park, it would depend upon where they were in the park.
Sure.
If they were nowhere near where I was going to be, then if I was full costume, I could go to the commissary. But they also provided us like these big robes or whatever, so we could get out of costume, put on a robe. And you could get away with that at Universal because the idea was, well, it's Hollywood, baby, and they're in between shows, and so you could just walk through the park. That would never fly at Disney.
No,
you'd have to.
I have this vivid memory of being at Universal and it might not have been you, but watching this Beetlejuice in a full makeup, kind of stripe, but a red robe on, and just making a beeline, and people are trying to, Beetlejuice, stop. And as Beetlejuice, the character, he literally was just like,
I don't need to talk to you right now.
And just kept on
he
going.
was probably on break and needed to, and because you're on break, you can't stop and take pictures or anything like that, especially if you're not in full costume. You couldn't take pictures.
Yeah. And also with Beetlejuice, kind of leading to my next question, as Beetlejuice, you can kind of be rude to audience cast members. So let's do a scenario here where, let's say I'm in the audience, you're playing Beetlejuice, and you see me wear mouse ears. What would something Beetlejuice might say to that?
What the heck is that growing out of your head? You get cursed. Get cursed by somebody trying to turn you into some sort of rat.
Take it off. Shame.
Yeah. Oh, it's removed. Oh, that's gross. You just rip that off. Any of your other body parts fall off too? You need help? We got people who can sew that back on for you. Frankenstein, who's your guy?
Yeah.
Who put you together?
Wow, man, that was well done. If I had a button to give you applause, I would.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines. I was going through the park. It wasn't. It wasn't towards lunch. There was a period of time where our theater had been taken over by the Rosie O'Donnell show.
Oh God. Yeah.
So we were booted out of the theater. We were in this little trailer in another part of the theater, another part of the park. And so for about 4 weeks, we were doing nothing but meet and greets. We would just drive around. We would drive around the park in a hearse, and we'd stop at certain places and do meet and greets as the cast, because there was no show for us to do. But they weren't going to put us out of work for a month, so we would just go and do 30-minute meet and greets. And I just remember this one line where this one time we're at a meet and greet, and somebody was literally, excuse me, what's the quickest way to the exit?
I don't know, running.
So you don't have to be, I didn't have to be nice to people.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun.
You want a way out? Here, let me help. Fire!
Well, we also too, we got a lot of leeway. Once a year, AIDS Project Los Angeles would do a park buyout.
Okay.
So like, say if the park closed, because Universal has early park hours, they'd close at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. And we'd have our regular day shows. And then AIDS Project LA would have like their private event from like 8 to midnight. And it'd be a full park buyout. And we would do like a special, just one performance for the night, but a performance of Beetlejuice for AIDS Project Los Angeles. And it would be at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So it was basically like the midnight show of Beetlejuice. And because it was for a private group and everything like that, we got to get way more. I would say the reins were loosened a lot.
Sure.
And that we did some stuff we never could have gotten away with during the day.
Did Beetlejuice get a lot of not a lot of, but did he get more time out or more performances during Hollywood Horror Nights? If you remember,
there was a period of time, I think it was after our show closed, they did like a version of it for Hollywood Horror Nights.
That'd be nice if they brought it back.
I think there was Hollywood Horror Nights versions of the show. which I never did because I was there during the day, and they would bring in another. That's what it was. They would bring in another cast to do like 2 shows for Hollywood Horror Nights.
Mm.
There was one year where I would do Beetlejuice during the day, and then at night I just went next door to the Animal Actor stage, and I was the host of the Animal House of Horrors.
Okay, as
And
Beetlejuice?
not as Beetlejuice.
Oh, okay.
I was dressed up as a like one of the animal trainers for the Animal Actor stage.
Okay.
But like all of our clothes were like shredded and torn, like we'd been mauled by the animals and stuff like that. And it was this really jokey show, but it was so cheesy and campy and fun.
Nice. So I have a segment on my podcast. I'm trying to reintroduce this when appropriate. I have a segment on my podcast. It's called My First Time.
Oh.
So yeah, Dylan. My first time with Dylan White.
Oh.
Is obviously the Genie and Aladdin, but I think my real first time with you would be on TikTok.
Okay.
This was years ago. I responded to one of your videos, and you responded to me about talking about movies.
Oh, good for me.
Yeah. So I'm gonna follow up with that. Take you up on that.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm remembering
4
this.
years ago.
Yes.
I started off as the movie man on TikTok, but then Straw Hat Goofy took off with his career, and I just couldn't keep up with the amount. Like Straw Hat Goofy did so much work and poured so much into TikTok, and I'm on the sidelines trying to keep my full-time job together. I can't go out and see new movies, so I was like,
right.
I need to revamp everything. But I got you now. Now we can talk movies.
Let's talk movies.
What would you, in your library of movies, what do you think is most slept on now? Like a movie that people just don't talk about or don't remember anymore.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Aha.
A movie that people sleep on now. And I can't say too much about a lot of current movies, like anything in the past 10 years not coming to mind, because I haven't gone to a lot of movies.
It's either a superhero movie or there's some twist where the father is the brother of the guy who murdered the cousin.
And it's a remake and it's a sequel.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a deep dive. One of my all-time favorite movies. The people who know this movie typically love this movie.
Okay.
And if they haven't, when they see it, they're like, oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. Standalone film, 1988, Robert De Niro, Charles Grodin, Midnight Run.
Midnight Run. I have not seen it.
Watch Midnight Run. It is such a fun movie.
Writing it down. Midnight Run with De Niro. Is it a comedy? Is it a thriller?
It's a buddy road comedy kind of thing.
You said 90s?
1988.
Oh, 88. Okay. So De Niro wasn't really doing Analyze This or in comedies.
No, this was before that. Yeah, it wasn't really doing comedies. And like he's funny in this, but the comedy comes from character stuff and situational stuff. It's not like a jokey comedy.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Robert De Niro plays a bounty hunter who has to bring Charles Grodin he has to bring him back into jail before he gets killed by this Las Vegas mobster that he used to work for.
Oh, I love it. That sounds fun. All right, Midnight Run.
It's a cross-country trip, and it's so much fun. Such a great movie.
Cool. For me, a movie that's slept on now. I bring it up. No one's heard of it. It has Dennis Quaid, Kathleen Turner, and Stanley Tucci. It's a movie called Undercover Blues.
I've heard of the movie. I've never seen it.
Dennis Quaid and Kathleen Turner play these these new parents who are ex-spies, espionage.
Okay.
And they decide to have their retirement in New Orleans, and they get kind of wrapped up in one last mission the government needs them on.
Right.
Stanley Tucci steals the show as this character named Muerte, as in death, and that's the whole gimmick, right? He attacks Dennis Quaid, and throughout the rest, Dennis Quaid just like whoops him, and throughout the rest of the movie, Stanley Tucci's trying to kill Dennis Quaid, and it's just so funny.
All right, I'll put that on my list.
Yeah, it's hard to find. It's not even on digital.
Like I said, I've heard of the movie. I've never seen it.
It's fun. It's cute. It's cute and fun. I'd watch it with your daughter. Or you would watch it with your daughter, rather.
Yeah. Why would you watch it with my daughter?
Oh, we're getting awkward now.
Yeah. Ooh.
When you watch movies, are you kind of split in half with, I'm going to watch this movie because it looks like a good story, or I'm going to watch this movie because of this actor is in it?
It's mostly because of the story. Like,
Mhm.
of course I do have actors that I typically enjoy their work or whatever. And if they're in something that will maybe influence me to see it, but if it looks like they're like in a piece of crap, it's like, I'm not going to go see that. Or if I've heard that it's just terrible and I'll see something about it, it's like, maybe I'll wait till it's streaming or something.
Yeah.
And then I'll watch and go, yeah, I was right not to pay money for this.
Yeah,
So
I've kind of seen a shift in that with advertising in movies nowadays. They don't really the big box office name, for like,
oh,
you
the
know,
the time of the box office draw is definitely, it's over. Like, it's breathing its last breaths.
yeah.
I think The Rock kind of has it, but one, I think he's oversaturated, and two, he's kind of developed this reputation
Hmm.
where people might not want to work with him as much, but he still seems to be a draw. I think in my opinion is Tom Cruise is like the last old school movie star.
I would say Jim Carrey too. If Jim Carrey's in a movie, you're going to pay money to see
Yeah,
him.
typically, but he doesn't really do much anymore. Like, he's done the Sonic movies, and I think that's about
I think that's all
it.
he wants to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
he kind of
and I
took
don't.
that turn of serious movies, and then he did Sonic, and then that thing with Will Smith happened, and he's just like, I'm done.
Yeah, he was kind of done. Yeah, Tom Cruise, I think, is the last old school movie star, and then after this last Mission Impossible comes out, who knows what he'll do.
Yeah, and kind of a good segue, like you were saying, having a big marquee name attached to a really crappy movie. A good segue would be the movie Toys with
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. And I know we can't have, no one can have an interview with you without talking about Robin Williams.
Then
And
it's fine. Yeah.
I was about to ask, is like, do you just like, I'm Dylan White, I'm not Robin? Is
No,
that,
then it actually, no, I've never had that. Unless
yeah.
this will be another like first time with Dylan's first time, where this will be the one where I'm like, oh God.
Oh boy. But again, going back to imitation versus creation, Robin Williams, man, you had, as opposed to Michael Keaton, where you only get 11 minutes of screen time, that Robin Williams had just a plethora of
Oh yeah, he had hours and hours
material.
and hours and hours of material that they just recorded, and it's got to be in a vault somewhere. And man, I've seen like some of the behind the scenes stuff released, like it's out there on YouTube, but I know
Sure.
there's hours of stuff of him.
Yeah.
Apparently it's like hours of stuff of Rickles too, when he was doing Mr. Potato Head for Toy Story. Like, they would just let him riff. And of course
Oh
it's
man.
Rickles, so there's all sorts of stuff he can't use. But same with Robin, all sorts of stuff they would never be able to use, but they just gave him reign to do it, and then they would figure out what they could use, and he would tweak as he went and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't mean to go down this road, but you mentioned Don Rickles, man. His comedy, I don't know. I think it would it fly? Don Rickles' comedy is all about like just poking jabs at people. Do you
oh yeah,
think
it's
he could
very
get
good. So
away with it nowadays with how cancel culture is kind of coming after people?
I
Or
mean, yes, he'd still have an audience.
uh-huh.
There's still there's still definitely an audience for that. Comedy clubs are very different than what you'll see uh online. Everybody online you'll get more keyboard warriors
Hmm.
online wanting to cancel you for certain stuff, but you get into a club and it's like, you got to understand, it's all jokes in here. We're not serious. And if you get offended by the stuff in here, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Like, everything is fair game. But to that degree, like, I've never seen anybody just do something like completely offensive, or it's just like, wow, okay, that's not even a joke. That's just a horrible thing to say.
Or
Because that's
even then, if you if you're paying money to see a performer and that's what they do, you're kind of
right.
somewhat
Like if you get
expected.
an Anthony Jeselnik,
Hmm.
who very dark humor, very twisted, very borderline, could be kind of offensive stuff. But if you know what you're going in to see, you
Yeah. There were times I was watching Inside the Actor Studio with Robin Williams, and he's
Mhm.
talking about doing Aladdin. And there are times where he says there were times he'd riff, go a little blue, and they had to go, it's Disney.
Oh, sure.
A mouse doesn't have genitals.
There's a great clip of him online too. It's probably pretty easy to find. I've seen it a couple times. Robin Williams was on Sesame Street, and he's doing a bit with Elmo. There's one where like he messes up a couple things, and there's one where he makes like a Madonna reference with like the cone bra or whatever, and he catches himself doing it. Nope, can't do that. Let's start over.
Oh man. Yes. And to see him, I mean, just kind of keep talking about actors. I mean, man, I'm really stalling on getting to Aladdin, but Robin Williams and Jonathan Winters together.
Yeah.
Especially, Jonathan Winters with a stick. Like just Google YouTube, Jonathan Winters stick, and he goes on for 5 minutes on just playing improv stuff with a stick. Yeah. Or do you kind of
genius?
Do you practice, like, how does one practice that kind of improv with
the only way to do it is to get up and do it. Like I can't sit here in my apartment and improvise. Like I can do it like if I'm coming up with material, but to be put in that kind of situation, like you're on stage and it's just they give you something and say go. Like I do have an improv background too. I've studied both Groundlings and Second City, and I've been in several improv troupes.
I'm saving Aladdin for last because that's going to be the meat, right? And I knew Robin Williams would lead the improv. So
oh, there you go. Look what you did.
I know, man. See, that's
the bastard. Where was it going? So yeah, it's the kind of thing you have to be able to just get it. The only way you can do it is to do it. Like
I took some improv classes in college, and as a young kiddo, your first time taking an improv class is I got to be the funniest one in the room, and then every joke just falls dead, right? And then the challenge then becomes take an improv class and don't make a joke,
right? And then and you make that point very well too. It's like okay, well, it's improv, I got to be the funniest person in the room, and the jokes will often fall flat if you're doing that. I've found, and I think a lot of people back me up on this, the key to it is finding the truth of it. If you have, like, if you're given a piece of information, what you do with it or whatever, if there's a truth to it, to whatever character you're playing or to the situation that you're in or whatever, that will make a bad joke better, or something that's not even a joke. And that's the other thing too. People think improv is like, oh, it's all got to be funny, because it's mostly what it is. You get your who's line, and that sort of thing. And sure, people want to see an improv comedy show. They want to laugh. They want to joke about it. But there's also things too in improv where a lot of it has to come from the honesty of the situation. If you're not committed to the character, the scene, the story, the bit, whatever, it's gonna fall flat. If you're going for the joke won't work. If you go for the truth behind it, the joke will work. The point of view behind it, the joke will work.
Yeah. I took I have a story on this. One of my classes where the teacher had us get into this big circle, and she called this game Yes and. The game was called Yes and.
It's the first basic tenet of improv.
Exactly. So you get two people start a scene, and then you get one line, A, B, A, and then
where this is going.
A would go away, and then B would switch to A, and then the next person would come online, and they were supposed to continue the yes and add to the scene.
Right.
And the whole goal was it was supposed to be one continuous scene, and they're all supposed to connect in some way. And I was maybe 14th or 13th in line. And all the people who are trying to be funny are just coming up with some random stupid line. And finally, I talked to the person next to me. I go, follow my lead. I got this. I know how we're going to bring this all home. And going back to talking about honesty. So you had all this random thing. I think at some point we're talking about a dead cat or something like that. Dead kittens. And so I walk up. I'm partner A. Yeah, partner A. And finally, it's my turn to see. It's like, and tonight on the 3:00 news, dead kittens are found in front of random doorways. For on-site coverage, we got Stephanie, and it just brought everything together, and it was the biggest laugh in the room, because I wasn't trying to be funny. I was just giving a review of what was happening.
Right. And again, because you didn't go for the joke, you went for the truth of the situation.
Mm-hmm. As a
Yeah.
news anchor.
Yeah. And again, that will make it funny.
Mm-hmm. And segueing now, how much of your improv skills came into play when you were auditioning for Aladdin?
To a degree, some. Yeah. There
Mhm.
was I can go over the audition process for you too.
Obviously there's singing, and obviously there's
singing, there's a little bit of there's a little choreography
Mhm.
to that. But there was also some scene work. So you would have to I had to do the script. They would give you the script, and you had to audition with a script as written, and just see what kind of performance you brought to it as written.
Okay.
And then they'd say, "Great, go away, come back, and make it your own. Like, put something in here. Like, they'd give you like a couple places, replace that with something, and replace that with something,
Mhm.
and then come back and do it. And then after that, they'd give you that option every time for the first audition, because they want to see how you did the script, and then they want to see how you made it your own. Then when they brought you back, they're like, okay, now you've made it your own. Now play with it. Now just really play with it. But the other thing too, I described it like this. You asked earlier, like how much leeway I had.
Yeah.
I equated it to the Autopia cars, where you had some wiggle room, but you still had to stay on track.
Yes.
Because you still had to tell the story, you still had to keep the show moving, and it still had to be true to the characters in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could bounce around a little bit because we're pulling, pop culture references from current times into this story, which to the characters in the story don't make any sense, but it brings the audience in, that sort of thing. Like, so there's your wiggle room. But as long as it was still driving things forward, it was fine.
And going back to Robin Williams in the recording booth, and even what made to the movie, like, kids don't know who Roddy Dangerfield is when they first see Aladdin, but he throws in, "I can't believe it, I'm losing to a rug." Yeah. I'm sitting there watching the movie with my dad. He's cracking up, and I'm like, "What? Who's that?" And then that's when my dad was like, "We're turning off this movie and watching Caddyshack."
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people will watch Aladdin now, and while he does, people could watch it now and have no idea who Dangerfield is, who Jack Nicholson is, who, like, this was kind of a side note, really kind of disappointing thing I heard the other day. Some middle school teacher on TikTok was saying things that my middle schoolers have said to me, and one of them was, "Who is Justin Timberlake?" So if they don't know who Justin Timberlake is, they're not going to know Dangerfield or Nicholson or half of the references he would do. Some of them are just like straight up characters. Others are like actual celebrity impressions. But
the one character, even to this day, as I watch Aladdin over and over again, the one character that Genie does or Robin Williams does, I still don't know who this guy is when he goes, almost, there are a few provisos, a couple of quid pro quos. I have no clue who that guy is. But it's so bold to put it in the movie.
Yeah, and the way they animated him, I'm trying to remember. It's not Bing.
No, it's not Bing Crosby. No,
it's not Bing Crosby. No, it is. I used to know this too. No, it's definitely somebody. It's definitely a character. Now, gonna make me look it up. But but I'm pretty sure it's from like an old, like 50s TV game show or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he does. What was it? He does a grand total of like 52 characters, right? One of his Groucho like marks, and everyone knows who Groucho is. And then, not to mention later on, after he had that little tiff with Disney, he did wind up doing Aladdin and the King of Thieves. He came back for it, and then he did even more improv with a lot of Disney characters. He threw in Mrs. Doubtfire, Bing and Bob Hope. But all these are references, and that kids today, or people in my generation or the next generation, are just going to be like, who the heck are these?
And yeah, it'll be like, who is it? But at the same time, he commits to the bit. It doesn't matter if you know who it is or not. It's never like a wink. Hey, that's Bob Hope. It's just like, this is the character I chose. And to anybody else watching, it's like, oh, he's just doing a funny voice, or he's doing a weird mannerism, whatever. And that's part of what makes the genie. And then for the people who get it, it gives it that extra layer of funny.
Yeah. Before delving into the Genie, the show itself, the Aladdin Spectacular Musical.
Mm-hmm.
When you were auditioning for it, were you auditioning for the show as going to be set in California Adventure, or were you auditioning for it to be transitioned over to the cruise line?
California Adventure.
Okay.
I
So
don't.
the
I don't even.
history.
I don't know if. I don't know if the idea of it going to the cruise line was even a thing when I came into the show.
It's still, yeah, Aladdin Spectacular is still kind of alive.
It's still, yeah, it's still on the Disney Wish.
Something like that. Yeah,
Something like that.
it's
It would be appropriate if it was on the Disney Wish.
Mm-hmm. It's the history, people, of the Aladdin Spectacular Musical is that it wasn't supposed to run for 13 years like it did. It was only supposed to be a summer-long show.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this. How
No,
long
I think you're correct.
Yeah, supposed to be only 3 months, and just attendance just spiked. Were you the original Genie, or was there a Genie before?
No, I came into the show about 2.5 years into the run.
Yeah, okay. So the show's already been going on, and
Show's been going on for about 2.5 years when I joined it, and I was there through the very, 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 very end. Like the last show was me.
The last show where there's that great clip on YouTube where you're listing all the cast members that you worked with, and
that's me.
And the reason why you're getting such a big applause is because that particular show wasn't for public, correct?
There was public there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, because that last like month and a half, they were having to do fast passes or whatever 4-hour show.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you
I did. I got a chance to see one of the final shows.
There was a limited number of fast passes available to the public to get in to see the final show.
Mm-hmm.
But like almost the entire, at least like lower section, or it was the front part of the lower section, because it was a big theater. It was all former cast, former crew, and everybody who was performing got to have like 4 people on the guest list, or 3 or 4 people on the guest list. So it was friends, family, cast, and crew. It was pretty much the lower level of the theater, and then mezzanine and balcony was open to the public.
Yeah. And like saying the show lasted 13 years. Mm-hmm. How many years were you the Genie?
Just over. It was like 10 years and 4 months.
10 years, 4 months, and the makeup. You have a clip on YouTube where it took hours to.
And I've got it. I posted a TikTok about it not too long ago too.
Yeah. I was curious on what similarities every Genie actor wore in terms of makeup. Were the eyebrows the same, the chin the same,
the nose the same? Because like you saw the thing, and for anybody who is watching this, go see my TikTok about the makeup process. But there was a prosthetic. It was a bald piece, a prosthetic nose and forehead piece, of course the pointy ears, and a prosthetic chin. Those were all molded a while before I even joined the show. It was like originally they were molded. There were, I think, 3 or 4 different molds, and then whenever somebody came in to the role, you would go to the makeup chair, and then the makeup artist would have the different pieces and would figure out which piece fit you best. So you could have, like, say, a number 2 nose and forehead, but a number 4 chin, and a number 1 bald cap. Like, it would depend on just what fit you best. So they never molded everybody individually. They just had a variety based on what the original molds were. And then if you came in, they just fit you to whatever worked.
Yeah. And as now playing the character, we talked about improv, we talked about Robin's influences. Your rule was don't do anything from the movie. Nothing.
It wasn't our rule. It was Disney's rule.
Right. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah. The Disney's rule was do not imitate the movie.
Do not. Do not do the movie because they wanted to make the show the show.
Sure.
And 2, the way it was explained to us, who knows how much truth there is to it, but the way it was explained to us was that anything that Robin Williams did was considered property of Robin Williams because he came up with it and wrote it. Like, of course, he still had scripted lines, but we couldn't do any of his jokes or anything like that. Like, and especially if anything that was like iconically Genie that was Robin Williams, we couldn't do. That was considered intellectual property we couldn't touch.
And the beautiful thing about the Genie too is because he's 4th dimensional, right? He breaks into kind of omniscient is of all knowing, you had 10 years of material just from the movie going forward. A lot of key jokes that I wrote down here. I remember the Genie performing was a lot of Twilight jokes,
Yep.
a lot of Britney Spears jokes,
Reference Twilight, Britney Spears,
Tom
Justin
Brady.
Timberlake. I would do, yeah, the Tom Brady joke was one of my favorite jokes.
And then when Star Wars acquired Disney, oh, I seen genies go off on that.
They went off on that. Then little things like even just like little things like a bye Felicia, that was in there for a while. Anything that was like YouTube came out while we were doing the show and things would go viral. And remember that old like chocolate rain?
Yep.
That guy. That was in the show for a little while. I would every once in a while do references to Rebecca Black's Friday in the show. Yeah, if it was pop culture, the dress being either blue and gold or red and black, that was in the show for a while. Like you could pull from anywhere.
Oh yeah, couple of my favorite jokes when everyone's leaving after Prince Ali say the Prince Ali song. Hey, where are you going? Give me back my umbrella. Hey,
Ella.
Hey,
my umbrella. Ella.
Yeah,
that's the Rihanna song. Yep.
What was the process of adding a joke to a? Yeah, obviously
so we had.
You
go ahead.
had to clear it with Disney because, as we established before, Disney is very family.
Again, we didn't have to clear it beforehand.
Oh, okay. So
we knew our parameters. It was like the Autopia car.
Yes.
We had to stay within a certain track. We knew what we could do. Sometimes we strayed and they would come back and go, yeah, don't do that.
Donald doesn't wear pants. You don't need to point that out.
Right. I can give you a couple examples of that in a minute.
Okay.
But the process of doing it was, if like something was big in, pop culture news or whatever, or even just like the news, like we did stuff about, like what Aretha Franklin wore at Obama's inauguration, stuff like that. We never got political, but we would, we could touch on it, whatever, for something like that. So if something was big in the news and we wanted to work it into the show, we would, if we came up with something great and we would do it, we could work it in. But among the genies, we would talk amongst each other and go, especially like say, because there were 2 genies during the day, 4 shows a day. One performer, say it was me, I would be the first genie of the day, and then somebody would come in and be the second genie of the day. So while I'm getting into makeup for the first 2 shows, during that process, that's when the second genie of the day would come in just to be on standby or whatever. And we'd have a moment while we're in the chair or at some point during the day. Like, hey, do you have something about Kanye West at the Grammys with Taylor Swift? Do you have a joke about that? And I could say like, oh yeah, I do. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Or I'd be like, no, do you have something? And we'll sit there and brainstorm something and figure it out. And if we come up with a joke, we'd put it in that way. And sometimes like, you could have a joke, like say I would do a joke that for the way I play the genie would work in one spot, but another genie would put that joke in a different place and maybe tweak the joke. But the rule of thumb was, if a genie came up with a joke, like say if Jeff Sumner came up with a joke that we all loved, none of us could tell it on stage until he told it first. And if like he came up with the idea for a joke at the end of a day and he wasn't going to be in the show again until Friday, well, then we had to wait until Friday for him to tell the joke. It was just kind of like an honor amongst thieves sort of thing. Sure. It's your joke, and once you tell it, then we can take it and play with it.
And just as a memory refresher, how many times during the show can the genie kind of get unhinged a little bit? Obviously, when Jafar becomes the Sultan, that's an unhinged moment.
That's the most unhinged moment. That's because that's scripted to just be kind of like open there.
Was the original joke for that one the salt and pepper shaker?
Salt and pepper shaker is actually in the script.
That's in the script. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say that back. I take that back. It was in the script that I got. If I remember correctly, it wasn't one of the original jokes, but one of the first genies came up with it. And they're like, that's in the script. We'll just have everybody do that one. It's a solid joke.
It is.
So when I came into the show, that was in the script. It may not have been in the original, but it was in my script. It's a great joke. So that was the most unhinged moment. Like you said, the moment after Prince Ali, you got to play around a little bit. You just kind of knew where the moments were, where you could throw something in that, again, didn't detract from the character, the storytelling,
Right.
or the show.
Genie explaining the rules, I think, is
Yeah.
another
Yeah,
unhinged.
that was another great place where we could just go anywhere with that. But again, it's not off the rails. You still have to hit, these are the 3 rules, these are the 3 wishes. You still have to hit those beats, but it may not be necessarily the same jokes every time.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still
Another,
telling that story.
another favorite joke I have is during this Jafar bit. I don't know if you were the genie, but my buddy and I were sitting in like 3 rows, house right it's happening right in front of us, and the genie sees us in the audience. Just we're dying for what he's going. Like he's not doing salt and pepper shaker. He's doing something else. I
Right.
forget what it was, but we are just dying. And then the genie makes eye contact with us, and he kind of goes, "Stop, stop." And we're like, "Okay, we're gonna play." He's playing with us. Okay, we're gonna play one more, one more. And the genie looks at us and goes, "I can't do one more on this guy. His birth certificate was an apology letter."
That one wasn't me, but that's a good line.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But would you be able to interact with the audience, kind of like
Absolutely.
what happened? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What were you kind of looking for specifically? Kids,
I was
tweens, people wearing a genie shirt?
No, I was never looking for it.
Mhm.
It would be if it presented itself. If it
Okay.
was something that just came up and you could not ignore it, then I would reference it. But I was never like scanning for something to do.
Yeah.
Because again, like the idea was focus on the storytelling, focus on keeping the show moving forward. So if something came up, yes, I would, make it obvious.
Sure. And I know there's kind of like this the unspoken thing about every actor is you're doing so many shows throughout the week. Sometimes you're not there,
Mm-hmm.
but muscle memory kicks in, you hit
Mm-hmm.
play in your brain.
There were a few shows where I'll be in the middle of Friend Like Me and I'll just be like, wait a minute. Okay, this is where we are in the song. I must have come down the stairs because I'm here.
Yeah.
And meantime, I'm singing the lyrics, but in my head, I'm going, okay, did I do this? Did I do that? And just the muscle memory is still making me do the song and the choreography and everything like that. But my brain is thinking something entirely different, going, okay, catch up to where you are. Remember where, yeah. Oh, it absolutely happened.
Of the 2 roles, which one would you say either was the most fun to do, Beetlejuice or Genie?
I mean, they both, of course, have their positives.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Genie, you had to be more singing and performer, but Beetlejuice, you could kind of stretch your improv skills more.
Beetlejuice was a lot of fun, and I don't want to take anything away from how much fun I had doing that show and the freedom that I had in that show and the people that I got to work with. But the Genie, I think, edges it out just like a little bit, because I got to do it a little bit longer. There was a lot more for me to do, a lot more singing and dancing for me to do, performance wise. I got to play a whole lot with it. Yeah, so Genie beats it out by just a little bit.
And a couple of final questions. How often were you blue?
So often that Facebook didn't recognize me as me, it recognized me as the Genie.
Oh man.
I'd post a picture and be like, do you want to tag Dylan White in this picture? If I was the Genie. If it was a picture of me, it wouldn't come up with that suggestion.
Yeah.
And me
And
as the Genie. But I did in the neighborhood of 5,000-ish shows.
5,000. Can you watch Aladdin now after doing that, or are you just kind of?
Sure.
It must be interesting watching Aladdin with you, because people probably you're in a room surrounded by people, you're all watching Aladdin, they're kind of looking at you going, do you remember when you did that?
Yes, I
remember. When you were blue.
And I don't watch it that often. It came up, when was it on? I was at my in-laws a year or so ago, and we're flipping through the channels and Aladdin was on. We're just like, oh, we're watching this. So
And your stand up
a fun
now, you
reflection.
kind of had it kind of gave you material for your stand up, but
A little bit.
that's more of your intro to who you are?
Yes and no. If I do something about the genie, it's usually a closing bit.
Oh, really?
I'll get into a
Okay.
closing, yeah.
I went to go
But
see.
like I said, I might be changing that up. I might be diving deeper into my experiences and doing some more theme park material.
I went
or
to
material about theme parks.
My wife wanted to go see. I forget her name, but she had just behind her while she was doing her stand up routine. Behind her, she had some clips that she went viral for, and she was kind of responding to that. But I know you have tons of stories, and I won't ask you to share them now. Like stories like the magic carpet tipping upside down.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was, yeah, you were there for that.
I was there in that show for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, how the show kind of got a spark in popularity after Robin Williams passed away. I think I remember you saying something like it refocused you as opposed to,
yeah,
because it was a big blow.
Yeah, and a surprise for everybody. But then the fact that we found out about it in the middle of the day and had to keep doing the show, and of course we didn't want to reference it at the time because a lot of people in the theme park, well, some might have been checking their phones and gotten the news. A lot of people aren't going to know about that. And why are you going to talk about, hey, the genie died in the middle of the Aladdin show?
Yeah.
Like on the day, so we weren't going to do that. And of course, management felt the need to just say, hey, don't mention it. And we were all kind of like, well, duh. Like we weren't going to, call attention to it or anything like that, just for the run.
Story or a urban legend or word of mouth is the day Robin passed away, and once the cast found out the final genie on the final day, right before Genie says goodbye to the audience, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to Disneyland. He just kind of stands there and looks at the audience, from what I hear, or something like that, kind of in homage to Robin. He doesn't pick up the suitcase. He just stands and looks at the audience.
I'm trying to remember because I was the first genie that day. So I didn't close the show that day. So I was the first genie that day, and I found out about it at lunch. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how it went down, but it was something like that. It wasn't that he didn't pick up the suitcase, because we run in with the suitcase, we toss it back, we all do the bow, and then everybody runs off, and the genie is alone on stage as the curtain's coming down. So I think it was, instead of doing this whole big wave to the audience, I think what it was just like a thank you to Robin for that last show. And I think that was the only tribute we did to it. And then I think he got talked to about it, just like, don't
never
keep
again.
It as if the show goes on, it doesn't exist.
Cool. And lastly, before we head off here, what are you doing now? Are you still auditioning for these theme park shows, or are you just focusing on stand-up?
My focus is entirely on stand-up right now. I get a little voiceover work every once in a while. But my focus is entirely on stand-up. I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona now.
Okay.
I just not this past weekend, but the weekend before, shot a special for Dry Bar Comedy, which will be releasing later this year.
Cool.
So yeah.
Cool,
stand-up
man.
is now my focus.
And I've seen some of your I've seen some of your stand-up on YouTube. It's on your site. I told my wife, like, oh yeah, I'm interviewing Dylan. He's got this great stand-up bit about him checking out his wife at the mall. And
that's an old bit, yeah.
There's an old bit. Well, it's on your YouTube. Yeah. And I was watching it, and I told her the story, and then she kind of goes, yeah, I'd be pissed off too. So I was like, you're missing the joke, honey, but okay. But I think your stand-up's great.
Thank you.
Even though I haven't seen Beetlejuice, I know just talking about it with you, you had so much fun with that role.
So much fun.
And just on behalf of my friends and every other person that has seen the Aladdin Spectacular, you may not have been the genie, but we do believe that you set the bar for the genie kind of going, because once you were introduced, everyone just kind of like, there's a genie that we like. We don't know his name, but we like a specific genie. And I'm convinced you were that genie.
Well, thank you.
So thank you so much for your performances and everything. Before we sign off here, where can we find you? Where are you heading next? When can we see your stand-up?
So I just sent out a bunch of stuff to club bookers today. So you can find me at dylanwhite.com, Instagram and TikTok at It's Dylan White, ITSDYLAN White.
Don't Google Dylan White because you'll get some random football player
like
or
football
something
player,
like that.
skateboarder or something like that.
Yeah. It's got to be It's Dylan White.
It's Dylan White. But dylanwhite.com. I post everything there. My Instagram is largely, I post a lot of about my shows there. I'm doing some casinos coming up. I've got a comedy festival coming up. And if there's a place you want to see me perform, let me know, and then reach out to that club and say, hey, you need to book Dylan White in your club.
Hey, man, San Jose Improv.
Right. Let them know.
All right, Dylan, thank you so much for.
Thank you. This was fun.
Oh, I'm glad. Oh, thank you. Like I said, I'm just starting out. Hopefully I'll get more people saying yes.
I hope so too.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dylan. Thank you for watching. And if you want to follow Dylan White, you can check him out on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. All of the links will be in the description below. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little notification button so you don't miss out on another episode of the Meet and Greet. See you next time.